Scary story of paranormal in the sea. The salty air hung thick and heavy, a suffocating blanket woven with the scent of seaweed and the promise of an approaching storm. A bruised, violet sky pressed down on the deserted stretch of coastline known as Whisperwind Beach, a place locals whispered cautionary tales about during stormy season. It was a place Olivia, a marine biologist, had always found strangely alluring. Olivia, a woman hardened by years of solitary research and a recent, devastating personal loss, had come to Whisperwind hoping to find solace in the rhythm of the waves, a distraction from the relentless ache in her heart. She'd rented a small, isolated cottage overlooking the beach, determined to lose herself in her work, studying the migratory patterns of the elusive bioluminescent plankton that bloomed in these waters during the summer months. Her colleague, Daniel, a younger, more enthusiastic researcher, had joined her for a week, eager to collaborate on a paper they hoped would revolutionize the understanding of marine ecosystems. Daniel, ever the optimist, saw Whisperwind as an opportunity to uncover something truly groundbreaking. Olivia, however, was simply seeking refuge. The first few days were uneventful. They collected samples, analyzed data, and meticulously documented their findings. The ocean was calm, the sun shone brightly, and the only sound was the gentle lapping of waves against the shore. But as the week progressed, the weather began to shift. The sky grew darker, the wind stronger, and an unsettling feeling of unease settled over the beach. The locals, sensing the impending storm, had packed up their belongings and boarded up their homes. Olivia and Daniel, however, remained, their scientific curiosity outweighing their common sense. On the fourth night, the storm arrived. The wind howled like a banshee, tearing at the cottage and rattling the windows. The rain lashed against the glass, blurring the outside world into a chaotic mess of water and shadows. The ocean roared, its waves crashing against the shore with a force that threatened to swallow the beach whole. Olivia and Daniel huddled inside the cottage, listening to the storm rage outside. They had lost power hours ago, and the only light came from a kerosene lamp that cast eerie shadows on the walls. "Maybe we should have left when the locals did," Daniel said, his voice tight with apprehension. Olivia didn't respond. She was staring out the window, her eyes fixed on the churning sea. "What is it?" Daniel asked, following her gaze. Olivia pointed to the horizon. "Look," she said, her voice barely a whisper. In the flashes of lightning, they could see them. Shapes moving in the water, large and indistinct. They seemed to glide just below the surface, their movements unnaturally fluid and silent. "What are those?" Daniel asked, his voice filled with fear. Olivia shook her head. "I don't know. I've never seen anything like them." They watched in silence as the shapes moved closer to the shore. They were getting bigger, more defined. Then, another flash of lightning illuminated the scene, revealing the truth in all its horrifying detail. The shapes were humanoids, but not human. They were tall and slender, with long, spindly limbs and elongated heads. Their skin was a sickly green, and their eyes glowed with an eerie, phosphorescent light. They were emerging from the water, walking onto the beach with a slow, deliberate gait. "What are they doing?" Daniel whispered, his voice trembling. Olivia didn't know, but she knew that they had to get out of there. "We have to leave," she said. Now, they grabbed their backpacks and ran out of the cottage, into the storm. The wind and rain lashed at them, making it difficult to see. They ran towards the road, hoping to find shelter in one of the abandoned motels. But as they ran, they could hear the creatures behind them, their footsteps echoing on the sand. They glanced back and saw that the creatures were gaining on them. They were moving faster than they thought possible, their long limbs propelling them forward with unnatural speed. "We have to split up," Olivia said. "We'll have a better chance if we split up." Daniel hesitated. "Are you sure?" Olivia nodded. "It's the only way. Meet me at the old lighthouse at the north end of the beach." They separated, running in different directions. Olivia plunged into the dunes, hoping to find cover. She ran as fast as she could, her lungs burning, her legs aching. She could hear the creatures behind her, their footsteps getting closer. She stumbled and fell, landing hard on the sand. She scrambled to her feet and ran on, her fear driving her forward. Then, she saw it. A small cave, hidden beneath a pile of rocks. It was her only chance. She squeezed into the cave, her heart pounding in her chest. She waited, listening to the creatures searching for her. She could hear them moving around outside the cave, their footsteps getting closer and closer. She held her breath, praying that they wouldn't find her. Then, the footsteps stopped. She heard a low, guttural growl right outside the cave entrance. A clawed hand, long and skeletal, reached into the opening, groping in the darkness. Olivia pressed herself against the back wall of the cave, her body trembling. She closed her eyes, preparing for the inevitable. But then, the hand withdrew. She heard the creatures move away, their footsteps fading into the distance. She didn't know why they hadn't found her. Maybe the cave was too small, too dark. Maybe they had lost her scent in the storm. Whatever the reason, she was grateful. She waited in the cave for what seemed like an eternity, until the storm finally began to subside. The wind died down, the rain lessened, and the sky began to lighten. She cautiously emerged from the cave, her eyes scanning the beach. The creatures were gone. The beach was a mess. Debris was scattered everywhere, and the waves continued to pound against the shore. The air was thick with the scent of salt and decay. Olivia began to walk towards the north end of the beach, towards the old lighthouse where she was supposed to meet Daniel. She hoped he was still alive. As she walked, she saw signs of the creatures everywhere. Footprints in the sand, broken shells, and strange, bioluminescent slime clinging to the rocks. She reached the lighthouse just as the sun began to rise, casting a pale, ethereal glow over the landscape. The lighthouse was old and dilapidated, its paint peeling, its windows broken. It had been abandoned for years, and it felt like a place where ghosts might linger. Olivia climbed the winding stairs to the top of the lighthouse, her heart pounding with anticipation. She hoped to see Daniel waiting for her, safe and sound. But when she reached the top, she was alone. She scanned the beach, but there was no sign of him. The only sound was the creaking of the lighthouse in the wind. Despair washed over her. She had lost him, just like she had lost everything else. She sat down on the floor, her body trembling with exhaustion and grief. She didn't know what to do. Then, she saw it. Scrawled on the wall of the lighthouse, in what looked like dried blood, was a message. "They took him," it read. "They're taking everyone. Get out while you still can." Olivia's blood ran cold. She knew that Daniel was gone. And she knew that she was in danger. She had to leave. Now, she ran down the stairs of the lighthouse, her heart pounding in her chest. She had to get away from Whisperwind Beach. She had to escape the horrors that lurked there. She ran along the beach, her eyes scanning the horizon. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew that she had to keep moving. Then, she saw it. A small boat, tied up to a rickety pier. It was her only chance. She ran towards the boat, her heart filled with hope. As she got closer, she saw something else. Standing on the pier, waiting for her, was one of the creatures. It was tall and slender, with long, spindly limbs and an elongated head. Its skin was a sickly green, and its eyes glowed with an eerie, phosphorescent light. It smiled, a twisted, unnatural grin that sent chills down Olivia's spine. She stopped, her body frozen with fear. She knew that she was trapped. The creature stepped forward, its long limbs propelling it forward with unnatural speed. It reached out a clawed hand, reaching for her. Olivia closed her eyes, bracing for the inevitable. But then, something unexpected happened. A voice called out from behind her. "Leave her alone." Olivia opened her eyes and saw a figure running towards them. It was Mr. Hemlock, the grizzled old park ranger from town. He was holding a shotgun, his face grim. He fired the shotgun, the blast echoing across the beach. The creature shrieked and recoiled, clutching its arm. "Run!" Mr. Hemlock yelled. "Get to the boat." Olivia didn't hesitate. She ran towards the boat, her heart pounding in her chest. She jumped into the boat and started the engine, her hands trembling. The engine sputtered to life, and the boat lurched forward. She looked back and saw Mr. Hemlock fighting the creature, his shotgun blasting away. She knew that she couldn't leave him. But she also knew that she couldn't stay. She had to get away from Whisperwind Beach. She had to survive. She steered the boat out into the ocean, her eyes fixed on the horizon. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew that she had to keep moving. As she sailed away, she looked back at Whisperwind Beach one last time. She could see Mr. Hemlock lying on the sand, unmoving. The creature was standing over him, its eyes glowing with triumph. Olivia closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. She had survived, but at what cost? She had escaped the horrors of Whisperwind Beach, but the memory of what she had seen would haunt her forever. And she knew, deep down, that the creatures were still out there, waiting for her. The ocean stretched out before her, vast and unforgiving. The storm had passed, but the sky remained a bruised and violet hue, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface. Olivia looked at the glowing plankton in the water, a silent witness to the terror she had just experienced. What secrets did they hold? What ancient mysteries lay buried beneath the waves? Perhaps some things are best left undisturbed, some truths better left un. She continued sailing for hours, the sun a cold, indifferent eye in the sky. The small boat bobbed precariously on the waves, and Olivia felt increasingly vulnerable, exposed to the vastness of the ocean and the unseen things that might dwell beneath. She rationed the small amount of food and water she had managed to grab from the cottage, her mind racing with the events of the past few days. The image of Daniel, his face contorted with fear, haunted her. And Mr. Hemlock, the grizzled ranger, sacrificing himself to give her a chance to escape. Guilt gnawed at her. Had she made the right choice? Could she have done something to save them? As dusk approached, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Olivia spotted something in the distance. A small island, shrouded in mist. A beacon of hope in the vast, empty ocean. She steered the boat towards the island, her heart pounding with a mixture of hope and trepidation. What awaited her there? Could it be a safe haven, or another trap? As she drew closer, she could make out more details. The island was rocky and barren, with sparse vegetation clinging to its cliffs. A ruined structure, possibly a church or a monastery, stood silhouetted against the sky. She found a small cove and carefully navigated the boat towards the shore. The water was shallow, and she had to wade the last few feet, dragging the boat behind her. She stepped onto the sand, her legs weak and trembling. The island felt ancient and desolate, a place forgotten by time. The air hung heavy with a silence that was almost oppressive. She pulled the boat further up the beach and then turned her attention to the ruined structure on the hill. She knew she needed to find shelter for the night, and it seemed like the only option. She began to climb the rocky path, her steps slow and hesitant. As she ascended, she noticed something strange. The air grew colder, and the wind seemed to whisper secrets in her ear. And then, she saw them. Scattered along the path were small, stone cairns, each topped with a bleached skull. They were like macabre markers, guiding her towards the ruined structure. A wave of dread washed over her. She knew that this island was not a safe haven. It was something else entirely. She reached the ruined structure, her heart pounding in her chest. It was even more dilapidated up close. The walls were crumbling, the roof was gone, and the interior was filled with rubble. She cautiously stepped inside, her eyes scanning the shadows. The air was thick with the smell of damp stone and something else. Something faintly metallic and unsettlingly familiar. She found a small alcove that offered some protection from the wind and huddled down for the night. She was exhausted, but she couldn't sleep. The silence of the island was too unnerving, the sense of unease too profound. As the night wore on, she began to hear things. Faint whispers, carried on the wind. The sound of waves lapping against the shore. And something else. A low, guttural growl that seemed to come from deep within the island. She huddled closer to the wall, her body trembling. She knew that the creatures from Whisperwind Beach weren't just confined to the coastline. They were here, too. As dawn approached, casting a pale light through the ruined walls, Olivia decided she couldn't stay any longer. She had to get off this island. She walked back down to the beach, her heart filled with dread. She reached the boat and began to prepare it for departure. But as she was about to push it into the water, she saw something that made her blood run cold. Standing on the shore, blocking her path, were the creatures. They were even more terrifying in the daylight. Their skin was a sickly green, their eyes glowing with an eerie, phosphorescent light. They were surrounded by the skeletal markers she had seen before. She was trapped. There was no escape. The creatures began to advance towards her, their long limbs propelling them forward with unnatural speed. Olivia closed her eyes, bracing for the inevitable. But then, she heard a voice. A familiar voice. Olivia, it said. She opened her eyes and saw him. Daniel. He was standing beside the creatures, his face pale and gaunt, his eyes glowing with the same eerie light. Daniel, she said, her voice barely a whisper. What happened to you? Daniel smiled, a twisted, unnatural grin that she had seen before. I'm one of them now, he said. Olivia stared at Daniel, her mind reeling, trying to reconcile the image of her friend with the monstrous figure before her. But, why? She stammered. How? Daniel's smile widened, revealing rows of unnaturally sharp teeth. The forest, the sea, it changes you. It offers you power, understanding. But at a price. I saw the truth, Olivia. The truth about this world, about the ancient ones who dwell beneath the waves. He gestured towards the creatures with a long, skeletal hand. They are not monsters, Olivia. They are guardians, protectors of a reality we are too blind to see. But, Mr. Hemlock, Olivia whispered, the memory of the ranger's sacrifice searing her mind. Daniel's expression hardened. He was a fool. He resisted. He didn't understand. Olivia shook her head, trying to clear the fog of fear and disbelief that clouded her thoughts. No, she said. He was trying to protect people. To protect us. Daniel laughed, a hollow, chilling sound. Protect you from what? From the truth. From your destiny. He took a step closer, his glowing eyes boring into hers. Join us, Olivia, he said. Embrace the change. See the world as it truly is. Olivia backed away, her hand reaching for the small knife she still carried in her pocket. I'll never join you, she said, her voice trembling but resolute. Daniel sighed. I was hoping you would see reason, he said. But it seems you have chosen your path. He nodded to the creatures, and they began to advance towards Olivia, their long limbs propelling them forward with unnatural speed. Olivia knew that she was outnumbered and outmatched. She had no chance of escape. But she refused to go down without a fight. She pulled out her knife and charged towards Daniel, her heart filled with a desperate rage. She wouldn't let him turn her into one of them. The creatures intercepted her, their clawed hands grabbing at her arms and legs. She struggled against them, her knife slashing wildly. She managed to break free for a moment and lunged at Daniel, her knife raised high. But he was too quick. He sidestepped her attack and grabbed her wrist, twisting it with unnatural force. The knife fell from her grasp, clattering on the rocks. Daniel held her arm in a vice-like grip, his glowing eyes filled with a strange mix of pity and malice.